Hello everybody, it's really nice to be with you here today. Well, I hope you're doing really well. So this discussion is about Ginger Alden. It's a continuation video. I did a part 1, so do go and check it out. I'm really excited and really happy to be here with you because I get to talk about my idol, my hero, Elvis Presley. And as you know, guys, Ginger was Elvis's last girlfriend. I wanted to ask you guys whether you think Ginger took good care of Elvis. Did she nurture her relationship with him? She should have monitored him more closely on the day he died, especially on the day he died. The fans have mixed feelings about this. My view is that she should have monitored him more closely. I know lots of people will disagree with me, and I appreciate Ginger was really young. She seemed innocent and inexperienced. She may have lacked the maturity and wisdom to handle a meaningful relationship. My opinion is that she didn't love Elvis enough to take care of him the way he needed to be taken care of. Anyway, Ginger was aware of Elvis's illnesses and health problems, and of course his problems with medication. Ginger began dating Elvis in November of 1976, and during the time she was with Elvis, she witnesses Elvis collapse and be rushed to hospital on numerous occasions. And in January 1977, Elvis was rushed to Baptist Memorial Hospital. He collapsed due to exhaustion, eye problems, and problems with the medications. Yeah, so she's there during that time in 77. And in March of 1977, Elvis again collapses. He's very debilitated. He can't even leave the bed, and he had to cancel his shows in Baton Rouge. I think I'm pronouncing it properly, I'm not sure. And early April, again, he's rushed to hospital, and that was due to a bowel obstruction, and he had lots of gut problems, and he had to cancel his tour again. And by June, Elvis was really weak and tired. He had trouble breathing, trouble sleeping. He struggled so much with his singing on stage. He was tired. He had some trouble. He had trouble breathing. He struggled with the songs on stage. He was taking lots of different drugs, and his dependency increased during the last few months of his life. And these drugs he was taking were dangerous. They had dangerous side effects. They were strong. Many dangerous interactions. These side effects would include drowsiness, grogginess, constipation, tiredness, and Ginger was aware of the side effects. Elvis's family and friends advised her not to fall asleep. She was aware that Elvis overdosed on many occasions, and he nearly died on a couple of occasions when he took too much medication, and Ginger was around during that time. And I would have thought that this, her awareness would have made it, she would have felt it was more important for her to have stayed up, to have stayed awake on that fateful day, or just stay awake until Elvis was done from the bathroom. I'm not saying she should be watching over him all the time, only during private times when no one else was there, especially during times Elvis took his medication and When Elvis was touring, he would abuse the medication even more. He would take more than he was prescribed because he needed it. He needed the stamina and the strength to perform the shows. And maybe on the 16th of August, at least Ginger could have just gone to the bathroom to see if he was okay before falling asleep. This is just a suggestion, guys. And Elvis had his last, I think he's had his last package of medication at 4:30 in the morning. He would call them attacks or hits. His last hit was at 4:30 in the morning of August the 16th. But they say Elvis could have taken more medication after 4:30 because he was unable to sleep. So he needed more medication, more sleeping pills to sleep. And Elvis goes to the bathroom for the last time at 9:30 in the morning. And Ginger knew that Elvis's previous girlfriends, such as Linda Thompson and Mindy Miller, they would always wait for Elvis to fall asleep first before going to sleep themselves. They never fell asleep before Elvis, and Ginger knew this. And Elvis had a history of overdosing. He was rushed to hospital many times because of exhaustion, dehydration, overdosing. He had so many medical emergencies and near-death experiences. He collapsed many times. He nearly choked to death on his food because he fell asleep with food in his mouth. Because the medication was making him sleepy and drowsy, he'd fall asleep with the food in his mouth. And he was hospitalized on many occasions for overdosing. So knowing this, Ginger would have known that his health could suddenly deteriorate. It could suddenly be an emergency. Therefore, she needed to keep a closer eye on him. She needed to be more alert, I think. Yeah, that's my opinion. Linda Thompson and members of the Memphis Mafia, they intervened on many occasions when Elvis collapsed. Also, Ginger knew that Elvis had many serious health problems. He was overweight, he had high blood pressure, diabetes. He was in excruciating pain from the osteoarthritis he had all over his body, all his joints. He had a family history of heart problems. And looking at Elvis's family history, we can see that most of his family, they died from heart attacks at a very, very young age. You know, Elvis had gut problems. He suffered from constipation. The muscles in his gut did not work really well. They didn't work at all, actually, and Elvis couldn't push the food. He couldn't push the food down his digestive system, and therefore he was bloated and constipated. And Ginger was told by family members not to go to sleep before Elvis. She was told to monitor Elvis during vulnerable times, and in vulnerable places, such as the bathroom. She was briefed about this, you know. Ginger had a close relationship with Elvis. She was his nearest and dearest, his fiancée. She was living with him, and she had a duty of care towards him. Yes, she hadn't moved in completely, but she was staying with him, and she was staying with him all day and all night. And as his fiancée, I believe she had the responsibility towards him, a moral kind of responsibility as your spouse, as a spouse, her future husband. anyway, she had this responsibility for his well-being, especially during the vulnerable moments, like sleep time or time in the bathroom. No, she wasn't told to monitor him all the time, just a few moments, you know, during those vulnerable, intimate times. I mean, if I was Elvis's fiance, I would have been worried sick. I don't think I would have fallen asleep. I would have made sure he was okay. But that's me, you know. Everybody's different. So everybody made Elvis work his guts out, non-stop, like a machine. So, therefore, they had a duty and a responsibility, including Ginger, to keep an eye on him. Elvis needed the medication to function and to be up on that stage. Everybody relied on Elvis to be on that stage making the money for everyone, you know. So in order for this to happen, Elvis relied on the medication. He had to take extra medication, overdosed himself, because he needed the stamina to be on that stage. Elvis, he was overworked. He never took a break. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, overbooked him. He had a really tight schedule, and he was just performing concerts back to back without a break. You know, he did beyond what a human being can do. And these people, they just wanted the money. Everybody took Elvis's money. They took advantage of his generosity. They demanded more and more money. And Elvis had to work his pants off to make everyone happy. They put him in that situation. So in the end, Elvis owed debts. He owed people money. But he was so honest and trustworthy and loyal, very loyal person. He worked himself to death to pay everybody. You know, and all his family, his friends were bitter and angry because Elvis left everything to Lisa in his will. He never left anything to anyone else. Well, guys, you should have looked after him if you wanted anything left in the will for yourselves. They put him in that situation. So the Memphis Mafia and his fiancée Ginger had a duty of care towards him. That's all I want to say about that. Ginger wanted that lifestyle she was accustomed to. They all pushed him into doing the concerts, one after the other. Everybody, every day, non-stop, concerts back to back. And his manager was robbing him blind, taking 50% of his wages. Can you imagine? 50%? All these people never looked after they treated him like a cash cow. They never looked after their cash cow. Yes, they treated him as though he was a cash cow. But all these people, they never looked after their cash cow, did they? You know, and now they're crying. They cry because he's dead and they can no longer get all that money. They are mourning. They mourned for the money. They mourned for the lifestyle they had with Elvis. You know, they killed the goose that laid the golden egg. It's really sad. You should have looked after him, guys. His poor body couldn't take any more bashing. It was bashed and bashed and bashed. Everybody knew there was a chance he could die, but they still pushed him to work himself to death. He even had bone cancer, for God's sakes. Charlie Hodge and Kathy Westmoreland mentioned that Elvis had bone cancer. And Elvis himself felt that he was going to die. So 3 days before he dies, Elvis tells Billy Stanley, his stepson, that the next time he'll see him would be in a higher plane or a different realm. And another time, Elvis tells Kathy Westmoreland that he had bone cancer. And he also confided in her, telling her he thought he was going to die at the age of 42. And it actually happened. Anyway, going back to Ginger. Elvis was very generous to Ginger and to Ginger's family. He gave her so much money, so many gifts, including jewelry worth millions. I don't think Ginger would have dated somebody twice her age if it wasn't for Elvis's fame and fortune and his name. She was only 20 years old, he was 42, over twice her age. And Ginger, I think, could have overlooked the warning signs and the changes in Elvis's behaviour. Because she overlooked them, that's why she's often criticised for not seeking medical attention. And I believe deep in her heart, Ginger knew that she wasn't equipped to handle a complex relationship such as the one she had with Elvis Presley. But she went ahead with it anyway. She went along with it anyway. She wanted the money. She wanted the lifestyle, the fame. She did feel overwhelmed by her relationship with Elvis, but she carried on stringing him along anyway. Just for fame and fortune. She had a boyfriend while she was with Elvis. So why did Elvis need to ask her to finish with her boyfriend? Well, I think Ginger should have finished with her boyfriend before starting her relationship with Elvis. And also Ginger was prompted by her mother to squeeze as much money out of Elvis as possible. And the Memphis Mafia and other family members, other Elvis family members, they criticised Ginger for being cold and distant. People felt she wasn't suitable for Elvis, not just because of her age, but because of her behaviour. She wasn't friendly or forthcoming. She was cold. She was criticised for having a boyfriend while she was still seeing Elvis. Billy Smith said that Ginger wasn't the nurturing type. She wasn't as nurturing as Elvis's previous partner, Linda Thompson. And Matty Lacker viewed Ginger as one of Elvis's worst choices. He said that she appeared disinterested in Elvis. She wasn't willing to commit to their relationship. And as we know, Ginger was the last person to see Elvis alive. She was the last person to speak to him. So guys, she was in this unique position to notice unusual behaviour, such as if he slurred his speech, if he felt dizzy or lethargic or weak, if he stayed in the bathroom too long. If something was off, she could have alerted a wellness check on him, you know. Elvis couldn't sleep on the 16th of August. He was restless. That's a warning sign. That was a warning sign. On the morning of the 16th of August, he never had anything to eat. He didn't want anything to eat. That was another warning sign. That was unusual. He only wanted water. He was just drinking, not gasping for water. That's another warning sign. Something was off about Elvis on the day he died. Moving on to the bathroom. Everybody knew that the bathroom was a well-known risk. It was widely known that Elvis stayed in the bathroom for long periods of time, and sometimes he would fall asleep on the toilet. He was overweight, constipated from the medication and the dehydration. He was in a dangerous situation. It may have helped if Ginger did regular checks on Elvis on the 16th of August. It could have prevented an emergency. What does Ginger do? She tells Elvis not to fall asleep in the bathroom. And Elvis's last words were, "No, I won't." Well, Ginger, actions speak louder than words. You need to physically go to the bathroom and check on Elvis. Don't just pay lip service. Do the actual good deed. Go to the bathroom, Ginger. Check on your man. Anyway, after Elvis died, Vernon Presley, Elvis Presley's father, told Ginger that she was no longer welcome at Graceland. It seems to me that all of Elvis's family and friends find Ginger to be unsuitable for Elvis. I always wondered what happened to Ginger after Elvis died. She sort of disappeared, and she resurfaced a few years ago when she wrote a book about herself and her life with Elvis. And you guys, everybody, up to this day, they are still making money from Elvis. Everybody. They're all writing books, doing interviews and films, documentaries, spreading rumours about Elvis, lying about him, saying bad things about him. He's no longer here to defend himself. You know? Even people today, YouTubers, they're making money. They're making YouTube videos. They're not doing it because they love Elvis. They're doing it to make money. They're doing it so that they can charge members their money. You know, you find very few people, you know, doing it out of love. You know, I'm not doing it for money. I just want people to know about Elvis. I want people to view my videos because I want the future generations to know about Elvis. I want to spread I want to honour his memory and honour his legacy and tell the world about him and all the good things he did. And he was a very special, unique person that we'll never see in our lifetime ever again, you know? And the fact that Ginger was no longer welcome to Graceland, you know, after Elvis died, it means a lot. It speaks volumes. It means that she wasn't really liked. She wasn't trusted. Vernon, Elvis's dad, told Ginger that she wasn't welcome to Graceland after Elvis died. And whenever she went to Graceland to visit Elvis's grave, she was stopped from entering the gates. Vernon said, and I'm quoting Vernon, "She's dead to me, as far as I'm concerned." That's what he said about Ginger. And Marty Lacker said, and I'm quoting him, one of the bodyguards, one of the Memphis Mafia, he said, "Ginger was the worst choice Elvis ever made in his life." Oh my God, the things he said about Ginger, they were the worst out of everybody. He said, and I'm quoting Marty Lacker now, I'm quoting him. He said, Ginger was the worst choice Elvis ever made in his life. She was always disappointing him. She didn't love him. She didn't even want to be near him. She didn't want to be around him. She never wanted to stay the night at Graceland. She never wanted to get involved with Elvis's family or play games and, you know, just get to know them. She didn't want to go on the tours. She was always fighting Elvis. She felt that she didn't really love Elvis. They can't all be wrong. When everybody's saying the same thing, obviously there's more credibility in it, you know? They can't all be wrong. And when it comes to moving in with Elvis, Ginger didn't want to move in, but I don't hold that against her. I respect her for that, because she wanted to be, she didn't want to move in because she wasn't married to him. You know, she felt it was morally wrong to live with him as an unmarried woman. So I do respect her for that. And also Elvis respected her decision not to move in with him. He respected her for that. And yeah, she wasn't liked at all, by the way. She wasn't liked at all by anybody. Even Uncle Vesta, he threw her belongings out onto the streets when Elvis died. If she was truly his fiancée, people wouldn't be reacting that way towards her. She hurt Elvis emotionally. So the more she disagreed with him, the more Elvis wanted her. So that's it, really. Everybody begged and pleaded with Elvis to just leave her. But Elvis didn't want to leave her because he actually loved her. But she couldn't be persuaded. She could never come around to his way of thinking. And another thing I'm not happy with is that after Elvis died, Ginger Alden's mother sues Elvis Presley's estate because evidently Elvis agreed to pay off Ginger's mother's debts to pay for the house as well. Apparently, if my memory serves me right, Elvis agreed to pay for the house. The fact that she sued the estate straight after Elvis passed away, it just makes me sick. And Ginger was a witness for the case to see the house, so she was just as bad. Where is the love, guys? Elvis was just a cash cow for everybody. Elvis's family had reservations about Ginger. They say she tried to take advantage of his name and his popularity. Everybody felt, the family, Memphis Mafia, Ginger didn't bond with Elvis at all. They felt that Elvis and Ginger never shared the same interests. There was something else I wanted to bring up, that during the last months of Elvis's life, Ginger says that Elvis seemed really healthy, active, upbeat, and he was looking forward to the future. But his family, Elvis's family and his inner circle, they would say that Elvis was ill, he was depressed, he was hooked on the medication. So excuse me, guys. and he was always groggy and really tired. Well, maybe Elvis appeared upbeat and positive with Ginger at times, but he was very ill inside of him. Elvis had trouble breathing towards the end of his life. Ginger witnesses the side effects of the medication. She witnesses Elvis collapsing. She witnessed the pain Elvis had to go through, the grogginess. She witnesses everything. She witnesses all the times he had to be rushed to the hospital. At times, Elvis staggered and couldn't even walk. He would trip and fall over and had to be physically supported by the Memphis Mafia. She knows about the risks of him choking on food. And falling asleep in the bathroom. You know, but to be honest, Elvis was sick, but sometimes he didn't display the outward symptoms. He wasn't beyond help. He was on the verge of changing his life, and he meant it this time. He was going to clean up his act, but it never happened. He was so near, but yet so far. But Ginger was too young to appreciate how ill he truly was. But is her age a defense? I feel she may have played down, maybe tried to minimize or minimalize, I don't know what the word is, minimize the true extent of what she actually saw. You see, people were already criticizing her for not caring enough for Elvis. So if she truly revealed how sick and drowsy and tired Elvis was, then they would view her in a more negative light, more than ever, for not caring more for him. They would have criticized her even more for not staying awake just to check on Elvis on the 16th of August, just to check if he was okay on the night he died. I know she wasn't his carer, and nobody asked her to be his carer. Elvis had plenty of carers and doctors and nurses, housekeepers, cooks, working round the clock for him. They also looked after Ginger. All the staff looked after Ginger. But these doctors and carers couldn't be there when he was with Ginger upstairs. The carers couldn't go upstairs. Only Ginger was allowed upstairs. The carers couldn't be with him to check on him during those intimate moments of Elvis's life. Elvis valued his privacy. Nobody was allowed upstairs apart from his daughter Lisa and Ginger. Elvis was the most hunted man in living history, so the little privacy that he did have, he guarded with his life. So no caregiver was allowed upstairs during Elvis's private times with his daughter and his girlfriend. It was up to Ginger to stay with him. It was up to Ginger to take care of him. Lisa Marie was just 9 years old. You can't expect her to monitor him. And by the way, Ginger claims that Elvis was talking about wedding plans on the day he died. What are the odds, guys? She was talking about her wedding dress and what beads to have on it on that particular day. But guys, their day was spent arguing. On the 16th of August, They argued. Their relationship was a big joke. You know, Ginger and Elvis had a big bust up on the 16th of August. They weren't even talking to one another. In fact, Elvis was meeting another girl to accompany him for the next tour. Alicia Kerwin, his ex-girlfriend, Elvis's ex-girlfriend, Alicia Kerwin, was going to accompany him on the tour. Ginger just kept arguing with Elvis. She didn't want to stay with him. She didn't want to talk to his family. She was distant. And she was also cheating on Elvis because she had another boyfriend, and she hadn't broken up with him fully when she was with Elvis. And this information is not coming from me, guys. It's coming from the horse's mouth. Elvis and his family are saying all these things about Ginger. Ginger didn't want to go on the tours. Elvis wanted his girlfriend with him, especially when he was on tour, because he was really vulnerable and very nervous about the concerts, and very stressed on the tours, and he needed that emotional support. He needed the companionship of his woman. He wanted her for moral support, emotional support, especially on the tour. But she let him down. She didn't want to go on the tours. Lisa Marie was just a 9-year-old child. You can't expect her to monitor Elvis. But you know what? Even Lisa feared for Elvis's life. Even as a 9-year-old, Lisa was worried about Elvis. She recalls times where her daddy was drowsy and falling down, and she tries to physically try and hold him up. I remember her recalling that, and she notices how big his tummy was, and he was staggering and tripping, and she tried to hold him up, but she was not very strong to hold him up. I just remember her recalling all these things during interviews. Yes, he was a grown man, but his work schedule, the pressures he was under, and his serious illnesses. You see, he wasn't a regular man. He wasn't allowed to grow up. He needed extra supervision. I'm not having a go at Ginger for falling asleep. She's only human. She didn't know this was going to happen. In hindsight, I'm sure she would have done things differently. If it was me, I'm just putting myself in her shoes. If it was me, if I was Elvis's fiance, I would have stayed up. They all told Ginger not to fall asleep, especially when he goes to the bathroom. Everybody trusted Ginger. But in life there are no guarantees. Falling asleep is a natural biological process. Who knows, guys? You know, when that hormone melatonin kicks in, anybody could fall asleep. I could have fallen asleep too. But hopefully I would have waited for him to fall asleep before dropping off myself. But Ginger went to sleep. She purposely went to sleep. She didn't, she wasn't over worried about him. She just went to sleep. She never stayed up. She wasn't sleepy, but She decided to go to sleep. She voluntarily decided to go to sleep. She decided not to monitor Elvis on that night. I'm not saying that Elvis would have been saved. The heart attack could have killed him, even if she had found him early. It's not her fault that the heart attack killed Elvis, but what gets me is that she wasn't worried enough about him. I mean, she wasn't worried about him being in the bathroom for so long. She didn't try to stay awake. Sleep didn't overtake her. That's not what happened, guys. Anyway, we can all speculate and as to what should have done, what people should have done and what they shouldn't have done, but it won't bring Elvis back. On the night Elvis died, he was already very stressed and upset about Ginger because they had argued. They were arguing. This in itself could have brought on a heart attack. Many reasons contributed to Elvis dying from a heart attack. His lifestyle, his diet, the medication, his genetic history, lots of reasons. Overworking, the stress. And one thing people fail to mention is the stress he was under because of his relationship with Ginger. That hasn't been mentioned. I'm the only one that's mentioning this. The stress of his relationship with Ginger could have caused the heart attack. Maybe. Lots of maybes. And about this other lady coming on tour on the 17th of August, well, it wasn't about cheating or replacing Ginger. Elvis decided that to end the relationship with Ginger on the 16th of August. He left instructions with his father to remove her from the premises, to tell her that Elvis had finished with her. In his mind, in his heart, Elvis decided to end the relationship with Ginger. He felt in his heart that the relationship wasn't going to work. Ginger wasn't there for him. She couldn't take care of him. He was going to end the relationship with Ginger on the 6th. He ended the relationship with Ginger on the 16th. He was arranging for his father to pack her stuff and kick her out the house while he was on tour. Alicia was an ex-girlfriend of Elvis. Alicia Cohen. She dated Elvis in the past. But she wasn't going to be his new girlfriend. It was just a companion to take with him. People felt that Ginger wasn't sincere about her affections with Elvis. I mean, Ginger's mother encouraged the relationship just for the fame and the fortune. People believed that Ginger was very distant, indifferent, cold. She never took an active role in Elvis's life. She wasn't helping Elvis. She didn't have his best interests at heart. And with regards to the engagement with Elvis, I take that with a pinch of salt. When Elvis fell in love, he fell in love deeply with women. With the women that he liked. He proposed marriage to many of his ex-girlfriends without following through with the marriage. So Elvis wasn't even on good terms with Ginger on the night he died. So how serious was he about her? I don't know. Elvis is not here to substantiate anything. It's all hearsay. I feel that Elvis was impulsive at times and indecisive. Even if he proposed to Ginger in private, Elvis would express his doubts and his fears about marrying her. He would confide in family members about Ginger. He would confide about his problems. But Elvis loved Ginger. He got involved with her family. Her family was around the house. They were always in Graceland. Elvis went to Ginger's grandfather's funeral. He arranged it. He flew by plane to the funeral. It shows his commitment with her. He loved her very much. He wanted to marry her. He wanted to have a family with her. He wanted children with her. But he decided that she wasn't following through. She wasn't right for him because she didn't want all those things with Elvis. My view is Ginger was too young for Elvis. Elvis should not have dated somebody so young with no experience. Elvis should have understood that they were both at different stages in their life. Elvis was used to people agreeing with him. He wasn't used to people challenging him. He was used to getting his own way. And he was used to people going along with everything. But along comes Ginger. She stands up to him. She disagrees with him. And Elvis wasn't used to it. He wasn't used to being challenged. He wasn't used to getting his own way. He wasn't used to not getting his own way. He was used to getting his own way. She wasn't ready to move in with him. She wasn't committing. But the more she challenged him, the more she disagreed with him, the more Elvis wanted her because she was more of a challenge. That's what happens to men. As soon as you become a challenge and you're not willing and able and saying yes to everything, they want you even more. That's it, really. As I said before, even if Elvis proposed to her in private, he would express his doubts and his fears about marrying her. He would confide in his friends about his problems with Ginger. And Elvis's family just regarded Ginger as just a fling. No. Ginger Alden's family was always around Graceland. The family was getting too involved in Elvis's private life, and they were encouraging Ginger to secure a future with Elvis. She was manipulated by her family to marry Elvis. But when Ginger describes Elvis as being upbeat, hopeful, and feeling good all the time, portraying him as mentally and emotionally fit and physically fit, I don't think she's not telling the truth entirely. She wants to portray him as physically fit, mentally fit. She's given us this sanitized version of Elvis. And I think she's given us this misleading version to protect her own image. You know, that's what I think. So I feel, guys, so at the end of the day, guys, Ginger will be remembered as part of Elvis's legacy. She's Elvis's last relationship. She's the last chapter. She'll be remembered as the person who found him on the day he died. I don't think she'll be remembered as the great love of his life. No way. I don't think. No way. And that's definitely not true. By the 16th of August, Elvis was done with her. He was done with Ginger. He split up with her. and arranged for Alicia Cohen to go on tour with him. He left instructions for Vernon to tell her to move out, to pack her things, and to tell her that Elvis had finished with her. But at the end of the day, Ginger was the person in the final months. She could have done more to nurture him and to watch over him during her short time with him. But she was the wrong person for him. It wasn't her way, you know? And she was young. I noticed Elvis was quite needy. He wanted his girlfriends with him a lot, especially during tours. He wanted the company. Elvis was anxious and nervous before each show, and he just needed his girlfriend there for moral support and for emotional support. Ginger was young. She wanted to go out with her friends. She wanted to go out to nightclubs with her friends. Elvis should have realized that they were not compatible. I mean, she didn't fit his mold. They were at different stages, life stages. And Elvis should have realized that she wasn't ready to settle down so quickly. Elvis would have saved himself a lot of heartache if he just let her go. He needed to take her youth into consideration, into account, before getting in too deep with her. But the moral of the story is you can't help who you fall in love with. Chemistry is chemistry. I don't blame him for falling in love with her. She is beautiful. She was shy. She was soft-spoken, reserved, quiet, demure, quite vulnerable. That's why Elvis liked her, because of all these qualities. And there's something I picked up on the day Elvis died, and had her hair done on the 16th of August. Lisa noticed it, you know. So when Ginger woke up on the 16th of August, she didn't go straight to the bathroom to see if Elvis was okay. She got dressed up and she did her makeup and even made some phone calls. She phoned her mother before going to the bathroom. And now Elvis went to the bathroom at 9:30 in the morning. That's the last time Ginger saw him. Then she wakes up around 2 o'clock in the afternoon and Elvis is still absent from the bedroom, but she doesn't go to check on him. She doesn't worry about him. After all those hours he was in the bathroom, he was in the bedroom, he was in the bathroom. No, she doesn't worry about him. So when she wakes up, Elvis is not in the bedroom for all those hours. I would have thought she would go straight to the bathroom first. So she fixes her hair, puts on her makeup, dresses up, has a chat on the phone. Then she goes to the bathroom, and that's not good at all. And also, going back to the marriage proposal, Elvis wasn't serious about marrying her in the end. Because when the Memphis Mafia asked him if he was getting married to Ginger, Elvis would reply, "Yeah, I'm getting married whenever that is." So no date was set for any wedding. Apparently Elvis also wanted to see if Ginger would accept the ring. You know, it was a magnificent ring with a big diamond in the middle, surrounded by smaller diamonds. None of Elvis's family and friends congratulated Elvis on his engagement because none of them liked her. They didn't think she was right for Elvis. Number one, they didn't like her. Number two, they thought she wasn't right for Elvis. So they didn't take the engagement seriously. And also, with regards to Ginger making a deal with the Inquirer, apparently she, after phoning her mother, she phones the Inquirer newspaper. According to records, it seems that Ginger knew Elvis was dead before calling downstairs. It was reported that at 12:30, that is, why would she call the Inquirer at 12:30? That's 1.5 hours before she calls downstairs. That's 1.5 hours before she discovers Elvis. So why would she phone the Inquirer if she hadn't seen that Elvis was on the floor? Ginger made 2 phone calls. She first calls her mother, and then she calls Jim Kirk, who was a freelance writer and reporter for the Inquirer newspaper. As I said before, Ginger's family, they were getting too involved in Elvis's life, too involved in Elvis's businesses, you know, in his private space. And Ginger's family, they were just encouraging her to secure a future with Elvis. She was manipulated by her family to marry Elvis. All the family sponged of Elvis. Right from the moment Ginger met Elvis, they all started asking for money and gifts. Elvis gave them everything, you know, from the bottom of his heart. Sometimes Memphis Mafia, they were jealous. People say the Memphis Mafia were jealous of Ginger because Ginger took up too much of Elvis's time, so they weren't really happy. But all I know is that the Memphis Mafia, people say that the Memphis Mafia were jealous of Ginger because Ginger took up much of Elvis's time, so they weren't really happy. And after watching some of Ginger's interviews shortly after Elvis died, I feel she comes across as a really shy, reserved, softly spoken young lady. And that's what Elvis loved about her. I think she was naive and inexperienced, and I believe she was very impressionable. In her defense, I think people will say that she was too young to monitor Elvis and to look after him, too young to handle a meaningful relationship. Elvis had complex needs and complex medical problems. She wasn't equipped to deal with this kind of thing. I think that's true to a certain degree, but don't forget, we're talking about the 1970s. In the 1950s, 60s and 70s, a 20-year-old was considered to be a fully fledged woman, ready for marriage. It's not like this day and age where we keep our children like babies, you know? A 20-year-old now, 20-year-old in 2025, is more like a 12-year-old. Women in the 70s were generally speaking, had more emotional intelligence, more experience in life. They were expected to marry by the age of 20 or 22, especially if they came from conservative backgrounds, you know. I believe that Ginger played down Elvis's medical problems to a certain degree. The Memphis Mafia are always criticized for portraying Elvis as this overweight person who was ill and who became more and more addicted to drugs. But let me tell you, they're telling the truth. Elvis was very ill. You know, the drugs he took were prescribed drugs. He needed the drugs for his health. He needed the blood pressure pills, the glaucoma pills, the painkillers, the sleeping pills, cholesterol pills, antacids for his stomach, and statins for his cholesterol, pills for constipation. He never took illegal drugs, you know. I want to make that clear. So she calls Jim Kirk, the writer from the Inquirer newspaper. Apparently she called him twice and she struck up a deal with him for her story. She was offered $105,000 for her story. This is terrible if it actually happened. Both Ginger and her mother deny this. However, the Inquirer wrote stories about Elvis in the past, but nobody knew who was giving them the stories. It must have been Ginger, no one else. And lo and behold, the Inquirer had their people flying into Graceland, taking pictures and making phone calls 3 hours before they announced that Elvis died. So why was the Inquirer, why were the people, the journalists, the writers, the photographers, why were they in Graceland? Why were they taking photos before Elvis's body was even discovered? Yeah? So I think Ginger must have known that something happened to Elvis before 2 o'clock. She must have known at 12:30. Why would she call the Inquirer at 12:30 for a story? You know, a story that Elvis collapsed, that Elvis is dead on the bathroom floor. I don't know, but it's very fishy as far as I'm concerned. Okay guys, this just about wraps things up for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please comment. Please like and subscribe to my channel. It would be wonderful to have you on board our little Elvis Presley channel. We have the best family here, and guys, please give me your views and opinions in the comments. And if you have any further information about Ginger and her relationship with Elvis and what happened on the 16th of August, why was the Inquirer newspaper at Graceland? Why did Ginger make a phone call to the Inquirer at 12:30? She discovered the body at 2 o'clock. And you know, Lisa, very, very clever little girl, you know, she was asking herself, why is Ginger all dressed up with lipstick and makeup? Lisa notices Ginger all dressed up. Anyway guys, please let me know if you have any further information about Elvis's last night with Ginger. Please let me know. Do you think Ginger should have been more vigilant with Elvis? And I promise to read all your comments, guys. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And take care. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Love you lots. And see you in the next video.